You might be pushing someone away without saying a single wrong word. And the worst part, thinking they're doing everything right. Have you ever experienced that strange moment when nothing happened, and yet everything changed? No fighting, no clear mistake, without direct rejection. It's just a feeling that's hard to explain, the gaze that takes the longest to arrive, messages that lose their warmth. The connection still exists, but it no longer resonates. And you're left trying to figure out where you slipped up. He replays each conversation in his head, every attitude, every precaution, because rationally you know you were present. Pay attention, available, perhaps even more than ever. And that's where the internal conflict begins. You wonder silently if that's precisely what's missing or left over. But he can't name it. You feel like something invisible got lost along the way, something that cannot be explained with right or wrong words, something that doesn't appear in long messages or apologies, and deep down, the doubt begins to bother you. How can anyone turn away if I'm doing everything right? You start to adapt, almost without realizing it. A little less opinion here, a little more agreement there. You choose not to create tension. I don't disagree. Avoid creating friction, because she believes that maintaining harmony is a sign of maturity. Avoiding conflict is a sign of emotional intelligence. Being understanding is the safest path, and nobody ever told you that this excessive care comes at a price. Little by little, you'll adapt, adjusting the tone, reducing certain parts of you. Not because someone asked, but because you felt it was easier that way, more comfortable, more widely accepted. And the curious thing is that you don't feel fake, just silent. You're still there, but less complete. You realize that you start expecting more signals from the other person than from yourself. Someone who reacts more than they propose. That's more of a question than a statement. Everything seems fine, educated, safe. But something starts to feel strangely lukewarm. The attraction doesn't disappear all at once. It dissolves. It doesn't explode. It evaporates. And nobody told you that extreme predictability doesn't generate tension. Emotional convenience does not create desire, because when you become easily accessible, you also become easy to ignore. You haven't lost value, but it stopped taking up space. And perhaps that's what's most confusing, because you don't feel like you did anything wrong. You just feel like you stopped doing something you didn't even know you were doing before. Presence doesn't mean being available all the time. Presence is occupying one's own space without asking permission, but you can only feel it. I still don't fully understand. You notice it in your body. No mild discomfort. That feeling that something inside you has become too quiet. And while you try to resolve this by being even more understanding, even more attentive, even more careful, something essential keeps slipping away. Not because you don't care, but maybe you're caring in the wrong way. And what's most unsettling is knowing that this didn't start now. You've been through this before, in other stories, under other names, with the same indefinite ending. You feel there's a logic behind it all, an invisible cog in the machine, a behavior so subtle that it was never directly pointed out to you, but deep down it was always there. And perhaps, just perhaps, what comes next is exactly what you haven't yet been able to see, but always felt you needed to understand. Because now what is beginning to move is no longer just inside you. It's in the way she senses his presence, without you saying anything, without her being able to explain it. But she notices. You start validating too much. Not with obvious words, but with micro-behaviors. The way you always respond too quickly, because he never leaves a message open-ended. He feels a slight tightness when she takes a while, and immediate relief when she responds. You don't call that anxiety. You call it interest, but on the other side, something different happens. She feels she no longer needs to move. No investment is required. No need to ask, because you're already there. Whole, available, predictable, And desire doesn't grow where there's no room for lack. You start looking for signs, small signs, one more emoji, a different word, a simple good morning that confirms everything is all right. And when that signal doesn't come, something inside you wavers. Even if you don't show it, you become more careful, kinder, pay closer attention, as if deep down he were trying to hold on to something that he felt slipping through his fingers. And that's exactly where the dynamic changes. Because attraction isn't about who likes you more, it's about who feels the least need, not in a cold way, but in its entirety. When you start measuring your worth by her response, her attention, her mood, you give away something invisible, emotional control, and nobody desires what they already depend on. She can stay there, laughing, talking, but something inside her relaxes too much. The tension disappears, curiosity fades, the mystery is solved, not because you've become uninteresting, but because it has become emotionally predictable. And emotional predictability, when exaggerated, kills desire silently. You realize that you start to explain yourself more, to justify attitudes, to show that it is trustworthy, as if unconsciously he were saying, "Stay, I'm safe." But desire does not arise from absolute security. It is born from choice, knowing that you're there because you want to be, not because you need to be, because they decide, not because they fear losing. When validation becomes a necessity, something changes in the air. She feels it, even without knowing how to explain it. And perhaps you've already experienced this. The person doesn't just leave suddenly, she only begins to drift away from the inside. Less initiative, less intensity, less delivery, and you try to compensate by being more present, more available, more understanding. Without realizing it, you're feeding exactly what's pushing you away. Because the more you offer yourself, the less she feels the need to win you over. And desire requires conquest, even after the initial interest. Even when a bond already exists, it's not a game, it's emotional biology. The brain moves toward what seems whole, stable, and self-sufficient, not to what revolves around it. When you are self-sufficient, you create space. When you beg, even silently, you take up too much space. And perhaps the hardest part is accepting this without blaming yourself. You weren't wrong for feeling that way. You made a mistake by forgetting about yourself, by placing the other person as the yardstick for your momentary worth, by transforming connection into confirmation. And that doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But continuing like this makes you emotionally invisible. You can feel it when it happens, in the way you expect, in the way you calculate it, in the way you wonder if you should have said less or more. Meanwhile, something essential is being relegated to the background, your own presence. Perhaps you've never stopped to think that desire doesn't respond to effort. He responds to the position. It's about how you occupy the world without constantly seeking validation. It's about how you remain centered even when the other person wavers. And that's not coldness, it's solidity. Now, if all of this has touched something deep inside you, don't ignore it. This discomfort has a purpose. Perhaps this is the beginning of a change that you don't yet know how to name, but he already feels it needs to happen.